The House Appropriations Subcommittee on General Government will come to order. Will the clerk please call the roll for today's attendance?
Chair Kuhn.
Here.
Representatives Van Workum.
Here.
Kelly.
Here.
Maddock. Snyder.
Here.
Chair, you have a quorum.
Okay. Rep. Kelly moves to approve the minutes of the May 1, 2025 meeting. There being no objections, the minutes are approved. Okay, and today we have a presentation by DTMB on information technology. And we're privileged to have Laura Clark, the Chief Information Officer, Jared Ambrosier, the Chief Procurement Officer here from DTMB, and there may be some others if you want to introduce those. Thank you.
Good morning, Chairman and the subcommittee members. Thank you for having us here today and for your interest in today's topic. I'm Laura Clark, as was stated before. I'm the Chief Information Officer for the state of Michigan. Joining me today is Jared Ambrosier. He is the Chief Procurement Officer. We're here to present on IT processes and how we manage risks. This slide really outlines DTMB's mission and vision. We're not going to go detailed into both of those statements, but what we really wanted to draw your attention to is our tagline of help, connect, and solve, which is what our DTMB staff strive to embrace on a daily basis. IT solutions are the underpinning of how we supply services to Michigan's residents, visitors, and businesses. Our solutions ultimately serve the constituents within your districts. DTMB has an innovative structure around the design of its IT organization, which provides consistent processes and is designed to reduce risk that is associated with IT. Through executive order under Governor John Engler, Michigan's IT was consolidated into a single department known as Department of Information Technology back then. The EO has continued to be upheld as our service model. The department's responsibilities has been codified through the Management and Budget Act. Consolidation is built around a philosophy of build once, serve many. To quote Waldo Jenkeith from the U.S. Digital Response, it's not just cooperative software. It's where the underlying things that start happening when corporate focuses on the need of our members, which in turn is the need of our users. There are many benefits for consolidated IT. Reducing cost and risk by sharing hardware environments, consolidating software licensing, and support staff. A few examples to draw kind of a correlation with are having one email system that all state of Michigan employees use versus having each department have their own system, or consolidating around software licensing into an enterprise licensing agreement so that we can buy on bulk purchasing and pricing. This is an example would be our Microsoft Office products. Additionally, consolidation allows us to utilize enterprise solutions for multiple agencies, which helps to reduce our IT footprint, driving down costs, and reducing redundancies. The consolidated model also provides a centralized approach for managing risk associated with IT. Trust is a primary principle for cybersecurity. DTMB has created digital guidelines that provide a unified branding for state websites. Additionally, we are built on a .gov domain, which only can be used by verified U.S. government organizations. Every Michigander who uses a Michigan.gov site will see consistent branding and know that the site can be trusted. The .gov domain also contributes to a safer operations and communication among branches and all levels of government. Identity and access management is also controlled through one single login system where security can be managed. This allows security access controls to be configured in one place. When a change is needed, we can make that change within our identity and access management program, our My Login program, and that will propagate those changes to all the application interfaces that sit behind it. Additionally, it provides a unified experience for the end users to have one credential. DTMB is comprised of 4 IT pillars, as shown on this slide. We function as a matrix organization where each pillar is responsible for providing pieces of IT services that combine together for solution delivery. Each pillar integrates managed processes and procedures to help reduce risk and to ensure higher quality results for Michiganders. Checks and balances are built within our organization to ensure accountability and comprehensive service delivery. One distinctive difference between Michigan's model to other states' centralized model is our agency services pillar. Agency services is the division that is responsible for delivering technology solutions to our state agency partners and, in turn, our residents, visitors, and businesses. This structure prioritizes end user needs. Agency services coordinates with all IT pillars to provide comprehensive service delivery. This support spans the life cycle of all technology solutions from development through maintenance into operations and support. The U.S. Digital Response Team recommends forming a state digital services of people in DTMB to ensure IT projects are successful. This team, as recommended, would focus on writing RFPs to meet agency needs, help select bids, and perform user research. It would be comprised of coders, designers, and researchers to make up that team. In our model, this function is actually provided through a cross-functional team of agency services and central procurement, as well as the team that includes experts from cybersecurity and our infrastructure backbone. So there's a lot of impacts that consolidated IT can have. Government, as you guys are aware, have been transitioning over the past several decades to be more dependent on IT solutions. Our constituents and state agencies depend on these digital services to conduct their business. The digital ecosystem is reliant on government, private entities, and end users to work together to maintain a safe and secure environment. Michigan supports a large number of IT assets. We have over 58,000 desktops, laptops, and mobile devices. We support 4,100 servers within our server environment, and we have over 1,700 business applications that we work to support for the state agencies. Every day, new emerging cybersecurity threats happen. It is critical that we strive to protect our state. In the past 30 days alone, our cyber team has blocked over 27 million potentially malicious intrusion attempts. Our adversaries only have to be right one time when they attack us, but our team needs to be right every single time they're attacked. Our shared services model also can support local governments. One example of this is our Michigan's Public Safety Communication System, also known as the MPSCS. The MPSCS allows local, state, federal, and tribal governments, their public safety responders, to maintain interoperable communications during planned or unplanned events. Think of events like the Michigan State active shooter event or most recently, the ice storm that happened in northern Michigan. Currently, 73 counties are on the state system, with an additional 5 counties in the planning phase of joining. Oakland County is the most recent local government to be turned on within the MPSCS system. I'm going to go ahead and hand it to Jared now so he can talk about the procurement example.
A statewide IT category management approach drives consolidated and leveraged spend not only for state agencies, but also for 1,400 local and educational MyDeal members who conducted over $120 million worth of purchases through our IT contracts in fiscal year 2024.
So next, what we thought we would do is talk about what the IT life cycle is. So CIOs, we are challenged to balance the opportunities that tech provides with the risk that it introduces. So some positive impacts range from productivity enhancements to easy-to-use interfaces for our users. This could equate to cost savings or cost avoidance through saving time and increasing speed to delivery. As demonstrated by the numbers of attempts our IT environment faces by cyber criminals in nation states are a high threat and risk to our environment and the data that we have to protect in which we are entrusted with. Other common risks for IT lifecycle that we have to manage and mitigate would include third-party or supply chain risk, workforce shortages and skills gaps, operational supportability and scalability, and the IT footprint growth and management. The second part of this presentation, we will focus on this lifecycle process, which is how we manage these risks. We thought it would be helpful to talk about the various stages of the SOM IT lifecycle and how DTMB partners with our state agencies to conduct our business. You'll see alignment of our project management methodologies that we utilize to the 18F recommendations. This is one of the benefits of centralization. I'm going to actually hand it to Jared so he can talk about the first couple of phases.
While the previous slide was depicted as a circle, the first step is always agency need. Whether this is a modernization of a legacy system coming out of maintenance or the solution of a completely new solution, the agency identifying the need is the first step. Before we begin the procurement process to solicit a solution, we first need the agencies to raise their hand and identify a need. This identification begins the market research process, where the agency and DTMB partner to begin to understand the suppliers in the market, what solutions are possible, and the potential budget impact of a purchase. We ask for the agencies to identify what outcomes they are looking to achieve with this solution. The agency is required to fill out our readiness form before we can begin the procurement process. Readiness includes both technical and business-related questions to ensure the agency has considered a variety of topics, such as data classification or does an existing system exist that can fit our need, before sending the request over to procurement. Once in procurement, we identify what is the appropriate procurement vehicle to move forward with. This could be a traditional request for proposal or one of our more newer alternative solicitation types, such as a request for solution or competitive proof of concept. From there, the solicitation is drafted and posted. Bids are received. Once bids are received, we review the bids for the ability to perform and determine who is the best value to the state. Part of this evaluation process includes vendor demonstrations, doing a comprehensive risk check with a third-party vendor, and speaking with existing customers. After that, we work with the Attorney General's office and other DTMB partners to negotiate the contract. As part of all of our contracts, we include service level agreements to ensure vendors are properly performing and measures to empower the end users to assess credits. Additionally, we offer supplier relationship management that offers support when issues do arise. As part of the contract management process, we survey the program managers on an established cadence to measure performance from their perspective.
Once the state has finalized the go-forward method for procurement, the team will begin to implement the solution. IT solutions for the state of Michigan are supported through a collaboration and partnership across 3 critical entities. The first entity is the DTMB technical staff, including agency services, subject matter experts from our Chief Technology Office's organization, our cybersecurity and infrastructure protection team, and the Center for Shared Solutions. These professionals are responsible for translating business concepts into functional IT requirements and solutions by applying technical expertise, engineering and architectural best practices, and disciplined execution. Agency services serves as the liaison between the business and the technical team, ensuring agency needs are accurately represented and addressed, providing departments and technical teams to build and configure these solutions. The second entity are the state agencies. These are the primary stakeholders and customers of the IT solution. They identify business needs and opportunities where IT solutions can enhance their service. Owners of the business needs, they provide subject matter experts for the business processes, services, and are accountable for accepting the delivered solution. The product owner is a person that is responsible for bridging the gap between the business agency and the development teams. This person should be a subject matter expert in the business needs and priorities. They also should have the authority to make decisions regarding this project. The third entity is DTMB's Enterprise Project and Portfolio Management Office. The EPMO ensures that IT projects are aligned to statewide strategy priorities and are managed using standard structured methodologies. The office is responsible for oversight, governance, and ensuring that the investment outcomes are delivered effectively. Project oversight is accountable for planning and executing IT projects in accordance to the project management methodology standards. DTMB's project management methodology standards is called SUITE. Additionally, we do training and continuously provide our resources with knowledge to ensure that they have the skills and abilities, knowledge and understanding of what their responsibilities are so that they can effectively perform in the roles in which they are assigned. So implementation is broken into 4 parts. The first part of implementation is the initiation phase. So this phase is informed from the information collected and decisions made from the previous life cycle phases that Jared discussed earlier. The primary function of this business activity includes defining project objectives and reviewing objectives defined earlier, establishing the financial baselines, identifying an association of risk, and then confirming stakeholder and strategic alignment. The next phase is planning, which focuses on laying the groundwork for the execution. So we refine and finalize the scope and the requirements. We develop the project management plan. We refine and finalize schedules, budgets, and staffing plans, and we document quality and risk management strategies. Through the third phase of execution, which is the phase that implements the plan. System engineering activities such as architecture and design, construction and coding, testing and development occur during execution. Many best practices from 18F, such as an agile project management approach, when it's applicable, can be applied during this phase. Where it makes sense, DTMB has been transitioning from the older project management style of waterfall to this agile approach. For agile projects, these steps that I'm discussing are iterative and organized into shorter sprint schedules. This allows for a continuous engagement with our project owners and our agency stakeholders. Our project management philosophy is a tailored philosophy to suite, which integrates Agile. As a result, roughly about 60% of our projects are utilizing Agile to this point. So once the project is actually developed and moved into production, the project enters the final stage of this stage, which is closeout, which takes the steps to conclude the project by verifying that all work was complete and delivering that deliverables are accepted, documenting the results, doing retrospectives, and understanding lessons learned that can then be applied for future projects, transferring ongoing responsibility from the development teams to the operational support teams, and then beginning to track benefits that were identified as part of this project. Benefits can start being realized from the beginning, but the actual measurement of those benefits can take up to 2 to 5 years so that we can measure what's happening within that new system. The fourth and final phase of our life cycle is the maintenance phase. So this phase is after we go live or do a hard cutover to the new system. This is where agency services or the DTMB operational and support teams could take over support from vendors if this was a vendor-supported solution or developed solution. Activities include monitoring system performance and upgrading underlying technology platforms like operating systems or applying patches such as security patches to protect the state systems from those emerging threats. During maintenance, a product owner may identify system enhancements or determine that an application is legacy and needs to go through a modernization process. So this is where we would reinitiate that agency need phase in the circle that was identified earlier. So next we wanted to talk a little bit about some of the recommendations that were provided to this committee by the U.S. Digital Response and talk specifically about how DTMB is working to implement or has implemented already several of the recommendations that was provided. This slide is to depict or to help give a visualization of what was recommended and what we are actually focusing on in DTMB. I'm going to get into a little more detail in the next several slides around these things. So the first is we talk a lot about agile development and how we're doing that within the state of Michigan. So DTMB actually, over the last year we released a new DTMB new DTMB strategic plan for the department. As part of that strategic plan, the IT deputy directors and I sat down and looked at what were the things in the initiatives that we were going to focus on for IT that help support DTMB's strategic plan as well as our state agencies' needs. And so what you'll hear me talk and reference a lot are 4 different IT strategic initiatives that our team is working towards in becoming mature in order to transform the way that we're delivering IT services. So one of them is our DevSecOps model. This really helps align us to our agile software development. So one of the things that we focus a lot in DevSecOps or Development Security Operations, that's kind of a mouthful, so the industry's shortened it to DevSecOps, so that's what I'm going to refer to it. But what we focus on in DevSecOps is breaking application development into incremental deliveries through modular containerized services. DTMB is moving away from what is referenced as a monolithic application architecture to a modular architecture. Monolithic application development is an older style of application development or software development, where there is a single code base and the components are tightly coupled and depend on each other in order to execute correctly. These systems have challenges with scalability, and when updates occur, there's a high risk for bug testing, and we have to spend a large amount of time to test the entire code base through what we refer to as regression testing to ensure that the application functions as it's supposed to. The modular-based architecture allowed for code to be developed in smaller, self-contained components. We build these components, we connect these components together in order to execute the full application. This allows for more reusable code sets. We can share code between teams and reuse that code set. We can also have more scalable components, so the components can scale out and support higher level of demands versus having to design those applications to always be able to support the demand. We can scale out for those. They're easier to build, and they actually build better team collaboration. For the ecosystem and the structure, a lot of what we focus around here is actually within our Cloud Smart initiative. So Cloud Smart is the initiative that we are using to basically look at how we host and how we manage the backbone or the way that the systems are hosted within our environment. So we have a multi-cloud approach. We have a private cloud, which we've had for a very long time, and we've also have 3 public clouds that we can use within the government tenant. What this helps is for us to avoid vendor lock-in, and it allows us to design the hosting and the infrastructure to support the needs of the application. So for example, some applications need to interact with data quite frequently and regularly, where other applications may produce data and reports, but it doesn't actually need it to do the processing within their systems. Those 2 different styles of applications would require different design. Each cloud has various pros and cons, and so we try to map out which environment and how the application architecture from an infrastructure standpoint would function best for the business needs there. Part of the Cloud Smart initiative is also working with our state agencies to understand their business application portfolio, and when it's time to modernize those monolithic applications into that modular-based approach and move them into the cloud environments, the more modern hosting type of platforms. The third component on here, which is that business ownership, we just discussed that quite in depth through the project lifecycle with our product owners and what their responsibilities are, and that's how we are handling product ownership and business ownership. Another area that we are focusing on in that U.S. Digital Response recommends is focusing on user-centric design. So one of our IT initiatives is actually our Digital Experience Initiative, which is where we are starting to apply our human-centered design, or HCD, methodology. We actually started working on HCD in 2021, where we created our first IT strategic plan or initiative around this digital experience. From there, we actually did a prototype of that HCD methodology on the MyLogin system and did a HCD assessment. What an HCD assessment consists of is bringing in end users from the public and giving them tasks to complete within the IT environment and application with very limited instruction. We then watch and learn from those users as they try to complete that task. We take notes both on where the user is not able to perform or complete the task, as well as how they feel about the system and services. We took the information that we learned from that HCD and we applied those lessons learned and created some changes in our system that we applied. When we actually applied those approaches and made some corrections based on that HCD assessment information, we saw a higher ability for users to be able to create their own accounts and reduce the number of abandonments, which is people stop trying online and maybe call in to a help desk or walk into a brick and mortar facility. So we reduced the number of abandonments there. We saw an increased ability for people to use our self-service functions, such as being able to reset their own password instead of, again, having to call a help desk. And we actually saw the number of calls reduced in our call centers because we had improved design here. From there, we actually worked with procurement to do a acquisition and created a pre-qualified vendor pool that state agencies have the ability to write statements of work and bring HCD resources in to help educate their teams as well as perform those assessments for them and with us to understand how to make improvements for our end users in their business applications. We also wanted to make sure that we had an ability to share the information around the human-centered approach. So we created a community of interest where we now conduct monthly speaker series to help share knowledge. We bring in individuals that have experience both within the state or within the private sector to talk about their processes, their approach, and what they've learned around HCD. And then from there, we actually understood and identified a new type of skills that we needed to bring into our IT teams to create an internal UX or UI experience team. We worked with Michigan Civil Service to create a new IT classification so that we can hire individuals with that skill set need in-house. So I'm going to hand it to Jared so he can talk about procurement and some of the methods that address the recommendations for U.S. digital response.
Thank you. So within central procurement, we are constantly looking to improve and innovate. To represent that, I want to talk about two of our alternative solicitation types outside of the request for proposal. The request for solution, or RFS, is an objective focused solution that uses problem statements and high-level requirements to allow bidders to present solutions that they believe meet our needs the best. We utilize vendor demonstrations during the evaluation process and then further refine the contract once a vendor is selected. The competitive proof of concept is a try before you buy approach. Again, using an objective-based problem statement and high-level requirements, this solicitation type allows the state to participate in a competitive pilot to ensure that the vendor's solutions will meet the needs of the state before we move to a final contract. This solicitation utilizes a two-step evaluation process. First, evaluating the pilots themselves to select one or multiple vendors that we believe can meet our pilot requirements, and then a second evaluation occurs at the end of the pilot to determine if it makes sense to move out of pilot and into a full contract. If so, again, at that time, we would work to refine the contract requirements and move to full contract.
So finally, we wanted to highlight some awards and recognitions that our team has received over the past several years. So the first one we wanted to highlight is from the Center for Digital Government. So the Center for Digital Government conducts an in-depth IT assessment of all 50 states every 2 years. States are assessed on their overall IT operations, the accomplishments they've had during that 2-year review period, and plans for their future IT initiatives. These surveys look into and highlight where states have used technology to improve service delivery, constituent engagement, increased capacity, streamlined our operations, and achieved our priorities. In 2024, Michigan maintained the highest rating of an A grade in our digital state survey. Michigan is one of only 2 states to have received the A grade for all 8 times that the digital state survey has been providing A grades. This means that for the past 16 years, Michigan has been an A state in the IT field. Also, as identified by the U.S. Digital Response Team, the National Association of State Chief Information Officers, NASCIO, and the National Association of State Procurement Officers, NASPO, provides leadership in this field. Jared and I are both fortunate enough to have been asked to represent our respective associations to serve on their executive committees. NASCIO honors transformational projects and innovations that address critical business problems, improves business processes, and elevates the residents' experience. Awards are given within 10 distinct categories. Each state can submit one nomination for each category. Each nomination is evaluated by a panel of government and industry experts and who selects the top project by category. States are not allowed to review or grade our own nominations. Michigan consistently wins or are the finalists in many categories each year. In 2022, our MyLogin project won in the category of cybersecurity for our centralized approach for how we manage identity and access management. In 2023, Michigan won the NASCIO Award for the category of Business Process Innovation for our HCD process and strategy that I just highlighted. And then in 2025, last year, Michigan was the finalist in 3 categories, and we won the state CIO's special project category for a project that we worked on in conjunction with the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. I'm going to let Jared highlight the NASPO awards.
So Michigan has won the Gold and Silver George Cronin Award for Procurement Excellence in back-to-back years. In 2024, we won the Gold Award for our Infrastructure as a Service, or IaaS program, which allows us to compete cloud storage and cloud services between 2 leading suppliers, streamlining the procurement process and reducing costs. In 2023, we won the Silver Award for our Professional Development and IT Procurement. This training series, developed by State of Michigan staff, equips procurement individuals with the skills necessary for the intricacies of procuring technology. NASPO has since modeled their own professional development series after ours. Additionally, in 2022, we won gold for our competitive proof of concept solicitation type that I previously mentioned.
Thank you again for inviting us here today and for your interest in this topic. This concludes our prepared presentation, and Jared and I are available for questions.
All right, thank you so much for your presentation. Rep. Snyder, did you have a question? Or a series of questions? Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Ms. Clark and Mr. Ambrosia, for your presentation. How many states use a consolidated IT model like the state of Michigan?
So like I said, Michigan has an innovative model where we have that agency services team that provides direct support to each of the business agencies within the state of Michigan. There's only a few states that are consolidated to that level.
And I guess if that's true, that there's only a few states that are consolidated to that level, why is it better and why don't more states do that if that is the case?
Yeah, there's several states that are looking at consolidating into the model that we have. Part of the reason why is it's very difficult to pick up the team and the resources that reside within the state agencies and centralize them into one organization. There's funding considerations in the way that you do the the funding models to pay and support the centralized approach, and then making sure that you have a business relationship process to be able to gather the information from the state agencies and to build that knowledge base. So it's a pretty complex system that we put together. We went through all of those challenges back when Governor Engler was here, and we consolidated.
Why not develop more IT projects internally instead of hiring contractors? I guess what challenges do we face, does the department face, if we wanted to start handling more things internally? Are state civil service rules or pay scale an issue for bringing more things in-house and retaining talent?
So part of the consideration that we make during that readiness process is understanding and identifying what is the appropriate type of IT that we're going to use, whether it's a custom off-the-shelf, whether it's custom development, or a platform. So those help with the consideration of whether we're going to do internal state-developed customization or not. Part of what we look at is our demand and capacity. So how much work do we have that our IT staff is already basically dedicated to? And do we have enough capacity within our organization to meet the demand of that project? So often we will bring in staff to help and assist, or a third-party system integrator to assist with those complex, large projects. And then we work side by side with them so that we can take over operation and maintenance with our existing staff. That helps with the right sizing of the full-time staff needed at the state of Michigan.
One thing from the U.S. digital response presentation that this committee saw a few weeks ago or a month or so ago was the importance of smaller and shorter contracts. That was not really mentioned at the end of your presentation about alternative procurement methods. Does the department have an opinion on that? What are we doing or responding to that suggestion, I guess?
So we try to right size, not one size, our procurement process. So when the need comes into procurement, we identify what is the proper way to move forward with it and can address it in a variety of ways.
I'm not sure if this is actually I don't think it's a DTMB project, but the Department of State's project for the procurement or contract for this new MyTAN system that for disclosure reports for Lobby Corps and personal financial disclosure that was contracted with Tyler Technologies. Are you familiar with that at all? Or is that something that you have worked on, or is that a Department of State issue alone?
So it is a DTMB-owned contract, but it is a vendor solution, vendor-supported solution.
Because as far as I'm concerned, I'd like to send those folks back to the state of Texas and keep them there, because as of Sunday, we have this report that's due next week. Couldn't log in. I could log into the system and I get a blank screen. It's the most embarrassing thing I've ever seen in state government when it comes to transparency. And the fact that we are a week away from that and still sitting here getting these answers or not getting these answers is pretty shameful in my opinion. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Rep. Snyder. Rep. Kellen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Regarding some licenses and on a national level, I think DOJ has identified that we're spending, at least the federal government, spending a lot of money on software licenses and those kinds of things that are going unused. We had this discussion last week about who's in the buildings and who's not. I suspect we're buying or purchasing or paying for several station licenses, software licenses that may not be going used. Do you have a number of license that you paid for versus how many employees we have?
We do not have a number with us. We can follow up.
All right. Also just wanted to, this Central Procurement Services, 1,400 local MyDeal members. Is that vendors, 1,400 vendors that you have?
So that is local units of government, educational bodies, school districts, nonprofit hospitals. Those are the members of my deal.
Okay, then there was, who conducted $121 million worth of purchases. There again, do we have credit cards issued that aren't being used?
Credit cards are not something that my office oversees.
Does DTMB oversee
Yes.
issuance of credit cards to other state agencies?
Yes.
Is that something that we could have a number of how many credit cards are out there?
I believe that is something we can get back to the
We
committee
would
on,
appreciate
yes.
that. Thank you.
All right. A couple follow-up questions. Rep. Snyder asked about the smaller contracts or the shorter contracts. Personally, I didn't get anything out of your answer. Is that something that you are committed to doing or not?
It is an option that we have available to us. We review every project to determine what should the length of the contract be.
Okay, so do you have contracts that are over 3 years?
Yes.
And so there's no problem from your end having a 3-year, 5-year, 10-year contract for IT?
Correct. Depending on what it is we are buying and what the investment is, the length of the contract may make sense for it to be longer or shorter. We also have contracts that are under 3 years.
Okay. And how about the size of the contract?
So
A monetary size, like 2 million max or 4 million max?
So I think when you look at the portfolio of contracts that we contract for, putting a cap on the size of those contracts would not be appropriate. I can think of an example like our ERP system, our Enterprise Resource Planning System that the entire state uses that you may have heard referred to as Sigma. We could not have done that contract in a modular basis. And so therefore that contract is going to be in excess of 5, 10, $20 million.
What percentage of your contracts are done on a modular basis?
I do
For
not
IT?
have that number in for you today.
Can you get it?
Yes.
And I was interested in your strategic plan that you mentioned here, and you mentioned the 4 strategic initiatives. Does that mean that you were just starting these last year, or where are we in this actual implementation of these strategic initiatives? And Mr. Ambrosier has just said, well, we may do it here, we may do that there, but are we actually making a concerted effort to implement the strategic initiatives, and how much?
Yeah. So I talked about 3 in the presentation. One that I did not talk about, but we've talked in past committee, is our Zero Trust initiative. So that's the 4th initiative. The first one is our DevSecOps approach. So again, like I said, we are working to train. This mainly is within our application or our agency services team. We're working to train and implement a standard way for documenting all of the tasks and things. It's through an Azure DevOps board that tracks, and we're working to build pipelines. We've been educating our team over the last couple of years around the transition from that monolithic approach into what it means to do containerized services. We've had to do education to change that design model. We've also, with the SEC part of that, we've worked to procure and implement certain security scanning tools that happen. So security scans can happen as code is developing. So if there's a vulnerability or an issue in the code, we catch that early. What happened in monolithic applications is those security scans happen at the end of the process, which causes us to have to rip out code and redesign and redo work. So that's an efficiency there. And then from the operational standpoint, we're looking and continuing to manage and maintain the monitoring of those systems. So there's quite a bit of work and maturity measures that we're marching towards there. In our Cloud Smart initiative, We have gone through the procurement process, identified the cloud providers that we're using. We have provisioned and set up those environments. We're working on some automated intake process so that we can take in the requirements from the application development team to identify and provision the environments that the applications need to be hosted within. And we're also working with our agency services team around that portfolio management and strategy to help identify projects that are coming that need to be invested in to modernize from those legacy monolithic applications into the newer style of architecture and application development. From a zero trust standpoint, we've been on that journey for quite some time. Some money has been appropriated for us to procure some tools. Recently, we did just make an award on a secure service edge, which is a primary component of that zero trust strategy. We have started the initiation plan at the initiation stage of that project. And we're working through design of how we're going to approach that project in our timelines. We're also looking at our organizational change management and how we're going to communicate with our customers, because it does change how they interact with their devices and their systems and their data. And then lastly is our user experience or digital experience. That's where I identified we had started in about 2021, really with that human-centered design approach.
Okay, and I haven't seen, I haven't actually looked at your strategic plan. Is that available to the public?
We can get you the link to the website.
Okay, great. And so does your strategic plan set out timeframes of how actually carrying out these different initiatives?
The strategic plan itself doesn't have specific timelines. The projects that we're doing to implement the strategic plan would have timelines in them.
Okay, so you do have timelines?
When we have specific projects like the SSE and other things that we're implementing.
Okay, just for implementation.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any idea how far you are along with like the DevSecOps training? I know you've indicated you're working on it.
I don't have that right off the top of my head, but we do have a team that's been doing some work with each of our agency services team on the level of maturity, and so we can pull some information for that.
All right, great, thank you. Rep. Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to follow up on a couple of the areas of concern that a couple of the other members have voiced, from particularly after our U.S. digital response presentation. They rarely showcase that any large contracts, whether it was dollar amounts or tenure, seem rarely successful. And I suspect that Michigan is no great outlier on that. But it seems to me, when you said it would be important, or you wouldn't have been able to get this contract if it wasn't a large, multi-year, tens of millions of dollar contract. My guess is the vendors have gotten very good about training state bureaucracies to follow their business model rather than ours. And I would suspect that if people followed more closely the recommendations of this U.S. digital response, we would probably better train the vendors and to start presenting their products and services to us in the manner in which we'd like to receive that being smaller amounts and smaller contract years, to try and get away from these ongoing running on empty, if you will, these contracts that don't ever seem to deliver what was proposed.
Thank you, Rep. Kelly. Rep. Snyder.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Earlier I believe Rep. Kelly mentioned some of the stuff at the federal level, and in your presentation, you mentioned several times 18F, which no longer exists and has been cut from the Trump administration, from the General Services Agency or administration. But you mentioned that you were using these guidelines that they have put forward, continuing to use these guidelines. What is the timeline for you continuing to use these guidelines for an agency that no longer exists? If you could respond to that.
So 18F has many best practices recommendations that align with other organizations that provide IT best practices. And so we're trying to align where it makes sense. 18F at the federal level, that's at the federal level. We usually can look at federal policy and things and determine whether it makes sense for us. We look at it from a market and a understanding standpoint.
Yeah, I just mentioned that because it sounded like you were following some of the guidelines that they've put forward, but if they don't exist anymore, I wondered what that process was. Continuing on the vein of wonderful state IT projects that we've had in the past, do you have an update of the work with UIA on a new system here that, we are 5 years removed now from the pandemic and the failure of a system that we all witnessed at that time that was completely overburdened, and a system that was overburdened 10 years prior during the financial crisis. Can you speak to the status of where we are building out a new system on that?
Yes, so currently we are in system integration testing, which is where we are testing the functionality of the system for phase one. Phase one is on track to be released in December.
Released to the go live, meaning?
To go live, yes.
Excellent. And who is the new? Is there a new vendor that you're working with? I believe you are, but I want to.
The vendor is Deloitte.
Deloitte. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Rep. Snyder. Just to follow up on that, is this new UIA system following your strategic initiatives?
Yes.
And so these are all, the new UIA system will be an agile project, is an agile project?
I believe that is one of them, that it's an agile process.
And how about, Rep. Snyder had mentioned the Mitten project that, that we are all struggling with right now. Was that an agile project?
So the Mitten project is a vendor-supported, vendor-managed, vendor-hosted, and DTMB has had limited interaction with that project.
Were you involved in the procurement of the vendor?
Yes, my team was involved in the procurement.
Can you tell us a little bit about the procurement of that vendor and the process involved in that?
I do not have it in front of me today, but I can provide you details of it after committee.
All right. Well, thank you very much. I'm sure we have, if members have further questions, they will contact you both directly. Let's see what I have to do here. Oh, yeah. Rep. Snyder moves to excuse absent members. There being no objections, the motion prevails by unanimous consent. And there being no further business, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you.